Good morning and welcome to day 2 at CoMotion Global. I'm your co-host for today, Greg Lindsay. I hope everyone had a chance to experience extraordinary Saudi hospitality last night. If not, I hope you'll join us this evening on the plaza for our own reception here as well. We had an extraordinary first day at CoMotion yesterday, and I am reminded of Cedric Price, the famous architect, who famously asked, "Technology is the answer, but what is the question?" We talked a lot yesterday about the transition from smart to sentient cities and autonomy and many other technologies, and we'll continue those threads today. But that question there, what is the question? You know, the smart city era, as we discussed with Professor Carlo Ratti and President Alvarado, was that the smart city tried to optimize cities. And of course, that was a question no one thought to ask. A better question, which the president raised, is what does it mean to be good? What is good outcomes for the public good? And that is a question typically not answered by presidents, but by mayors. And that's why today, here at CoMotion Global, day 2, we'll kick off with a whole panoply of mayors. We'll start with a whole session here about mayors in motion, leveraging our extraordinary assemblage of mayors from 5 continents, and then go into a new session discussion on sentient cities, bringing out mayors and others who will implement the kind of regulations, governance, and deployment that will be key for cities, and continuing on from there, including into this afternoon, where we'll have our incredible Mayors Roundtable, a private gathering of peer-to-peers amongst our various mayors to talk about the incredible challenges facing urbanization the remainder of this decade, the remainder of this century. So I'm extremely excited here to kick things off here on day 2 here at CoMotion Global. And to start things off appropriately, it's my pleasure to welcome back CoMotion founder and chairman, John Rossant.
Good. Thank you so much, Greg, and good morning again. And it was really great for those of you who were with us last night. What a memorable evening in Diriyah. And Diriyah there's only one Diriyah, I guess. Yes, indeed. So today, in fact, this whole conference, there is a particular focus on cities, on city leadership. CoMotion, for those of you in the CoMotion community, you know well that CoMotion at its heart is about bringing public sector leaders together with private sector innovators and investors, et cetera, bringing public and private together. We believe mobility, after all, takes place in the public right of way. It will always be a highly regulated industry, so we need to bring in public. This will be a real particularity of what we're doing here at a global level at CoMotion, is bringing in mayors, bringing in city leaders from around the world. And this morning, to talk about sort of that aspect, are 2 exceptional colleagues and city leaders with vast experience in the leadership of cities. To my left is Dr. Nassifi Moya, the executive mayor of Chouane, which is the metropolitan municipality within which is Pretoria, the capital of South Africa. Welcome here. And Dr. Moya is also the co-chair this year of the U20, which is the urban track of the G20, as you know. You've just had a very successful summit in South Africa, and you hosted that. And I want you to talk a little bit about some of the things that you announced there, including the initiative around the Masters of City Administration. Mauricio Rodas is the former mayor of Quito, Ecuador. As many of you know, he had an extraordinary run as mayor and very successfully put in the first metro in Quito, an amazing achievement which you accomplished in just 3 years, I think. Mauricio is a visiting professor at Penn, along with myself, of the SUMIT initiative, which we launched last year at CoMotion Miami. And that is the Sustainable Urban Mobility Investment Task Force, which brings together city leaders and others to look at new kinds of financial mechanisms that will be needed to pay for, to finance big mobility and transportation projects in the future in cities of the global south, as well as the global north. And that SUMIT will also be a summit, will be a panel later on this morning to talk about that. Dr. Moya, talk a little bit about the MCA program and why that's important and what that means.
Good morning, John, and good morning to colleagues and friends. So the U20 cycle of 2025 has been amazing for various reasons. And I think for us, I co-chaired it with Mayor Moderator of the city of Johannesburg. Yeah. So we were quite jealous as Africa that this is being hosted, G20, U20 being hosted in African soil for the first time. We wanted to use that to elevate the African voice with an understanding that it's about time that Africa gets to be on the table as well. And so starting with the Sherpa meeting that was hosted in the city of Tshwane, we hosted the Sherpa meeting alongside the African Mayors Assembly, that even the mayors that are not part of the C40 or UCLG network, they were there. And we handed over what was some sort of a communique to the Sherpas to say this is how Africa views the work that needs to be informed in Joburg in September. So that was the first thing that we were intentional about, just to bring Africa to be more dominant to the conversation. But what was amazing, when we were in Joburg in September, there are two initiatives that we hosted, or we announced. The first one was the African think tank, where we were saying the work that we started in Tshwane, let's make sure that we capacitate each other as African city leaders and look for resources. But what was exceptional was then the project that the chairperson, 2020 chairperson, His Excellency Rasheed and Mauricio brought and said, what do you think of this program where we need an MBA for city leaders? I said, I'm in. I know
that's a great way to, that's a great definition,
yes,
an MBA
for city leaders. And I said, we need it, I need it. And I was sharing my experience when I met them for the first time in Rio, where I told them in a closed mayoral session that I had just been appointed as the executive mayor. I had just inherited a budget with over 4 billion deficit. I inherited a city with a qualified audit. The creditor's book was spiraling. The bank account of the city was about to be attached. And when I took the mic to share that this is what I'm about to be confronted with.
Sounds like the situation in most American cities.
And so what I was saying to them as city leaders, this is a safe space. This is what I'm confronted with. Do I have friends in the room? And is there kind of support that I can be afforded by other city leaders who've walked the journey? And so the reason why I supported the MCA is because of my own personal experience, to say city leaders, there's always this expectation that we must be superstars when we get to the job, but no one thinks about the preparation of. How do you get to be the superstar mayor? What is it what are the skills? What is the toolbox? What's the toolkit here? What do you need to make a city work? But in addition to the announcement, I fully endorsed the MCA. With Mayor Moderator, we had the mayor's dinner again in Joburg, and I fully endorsed it. And I said, for us to build the Africa that we need to prepare for 2050, where 90% of our residents and population will be in the urban centers, we must start implementing that future now, but also you can't just talk about infrastructure development, but you need to focus on the type of leadership that you need for that future that we are preparing for. So that was the announcement in Joburg in September.
Right. And of course, there's a particular importance. Africa is the continent that is urbanizing the fastest in the world. It's extraordinary, the rise of African cities, just in my lifetime, of course. Mauricio, we've been talking a lot about and ideating the Mayors in Motion concept. the idea that cities need to learn from each other, cities need to find mechanisms to be closer to technological change and innovation. Talk a little bit about sort of really what's behind that, what we can expect in the future, what we're going to see this afternoon.
Thank you, John. Yeah, precisely. The idea is actually to develop a community of practice.
Yes.
A community of practice formed by mayors, by former mayors, by city leaders in general, to raise their voices and to share what their main priorities are around the many challenges that cities worldwide are facing. You know, poverty, inequality, climate change, migration, crime, etc. And I think that developing this community of practice can become a very dynamic mechanism by which they can talk about, you know, common challenges, to share knowledge, expertise, best practices, and most importantly, to collectively come up with shared solutions to some of these common urban challenges. That's the spirit behind Mayors in Motion, to foster the already very important collaborative spirit of mayors. I think that's the beauty of mayors. Mayors cooperate regardless of political flagships.
Right.
You know, people don't care if a mayor is from the left or from the right. They still have to pick up the garbage. They still have to fix potholes, and they have to provide high-quality services to the population. So the same happens internationally. Mayors cooperate regardless of their political ideologies. And I think that we should take advantage of this. And we should provide mayors with these kind of spaces for them to interact and to collectively co-create innovative solutions for this type of very pressing challenges. And the idea is to put together innovative urban agendas that then can be conveyed to some of the main city networks or city initiatives, like, for example, the U20. Right. So basically, it's a way to develop an ongoing mechanism for a community of practice to identify best practices and innovative solutions to common urban challenges.
So it creates a kind of deeper bench of expertise that city leaders around the world can tap, in a sense. So it doesn't seek to replicate existing institutions like, you know, UCLE or Global Parliament of Mayors, things like that.
I think it's a complementary effort, because the idea here is for Mayors in Motion to become an ongoing mechanism for interaction amongst mayors. And to do so not necessarily through formal ways, but to actually develop a community, right. A community around urban leadership. That's the spirit behind it. And of course, since this is, you know, launched along with CoMotion, mobility will be playing a very important role. Because for many of these mayors, particularly in the Global South, mobility is one of the biggest challenges.
Absolutely.
And therefore, you know, the fact that CoMotion provides a platform by which we can, you know, get together with tech innovators, with financiers, with people thinking about future solutions to current challenges around mobility is an amazing opportunity for mayors around the world. And I am pretty excited to see the reaction from mayors about this initiative, which we are launching here in Riyadh during CoMotion Global. This afternoon, we're going to be having the Mayors in Motion, you know, component of the agenda for CoMotion, where we're going to be discussing an agenda for you know, future initiatives around Mayors in Motion.
Yeah, and I think it's really fitting that this initiative is, in fact, being launched here in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia, because I think it's Riyadh, in a sense, and Saudi Arabia can have a legitimate role to play as that kind of bridge between East and West, and also North and South. Saudi Arabia is part of the global South. It has a very, very particular place geopolitically in the world. So I'm particularly delighted that this initiative is associated here in Riyadh, and I think that's something we need to keep going forward.
Absolutely. I think this is a great convenient space for that. And we can see that by the way, you know, mayors from all over the world are coming here to CoMotion Global, from all the corners of the planet. So that's a signal about the power of convening mayors from all over the world to bring different perspectives. And I think that, yes, like you said, Riyadh is in a perfect position to do so. And it's great to also think about how Mayors in Motion can become a very fruitful space to foster initiatives like the MCA, the Masters in Cities Administration, because we would like to have mayors providing insights on how to enrich this program, how to make it meaningful for training the next generation of urban leaders. That's the kind of initiatives that Mayors in Motion will be working on.
Right. Dr. Moya, just getting back briefly, we're running out of time, about the Masters of City Administration. Concretely, what are the next steps there? When will a city leader in a Nairobi suburb be able to actually get an MCA?
So the first step is that we started with universities in our cities where we negotiate and present the concepts and looking for partnerships. Because obviously this is not something that's going to be run by the municipality, but we need the universities. The beautiful thing in Tshwane is that the 2 university faculties I've spoken to, they already have something close to what we're trying to achieve, but then it's just a matter of adapting the coursework and they are on board. So that's the first thing, looking for those partnerships. But the important step is then to get those future city leaders on board and sell it in a way that we're not looking for a typical politician here. We're looking for someone with a vision of building the future that we need. And that goes across different spectrums. Others will be planners, others will be, from the side of advocacy, policy advocacy, some are actually mayors, others are city managers. So we're not looking for just a person who's going to be a mayor, but the whole spectrum of just looking for a group of future leaders that will contribute to the building of the future cities that we are looking for. So that is the 2 concrete steps that we need to get, the partnerships, especially with universities, and activating especially young people in our context. The city of Tshwane is a very youthful city. And so we're not discouraging people your age, John, but we are saying the more young...
What do you mean by that?
The younger ones, those are the ones. So I even said when we were presenting it in Joburg, I'm not going to be the beneficiary of the program, but those who will come after me, definitely those are the ones I'm looking for.
Great. Dr. Moya, Mauricio, thank you very much. And, I'm so excited that we're getting getting Mayors in Motion off the ground. I wish you all the luck with the MCA program. And next year, we'll have a good report on what we've done. So a big round of applause for Mauricio and Dr. Moya. Thank you so much.